YouTube, what's going on? It's Juan Gotti here with another video, and in today's video we're going to be going over undrafted free agent wide receiver that the Washington Redskins signed is Isaiah Wright. Now, I've been prolonging this video for the longest because a lot of people have been telling me for, I want to say, at least 2 weeks to check out Isaiah Wright, and I finally got around to it last night. And in today's video we're going to be going over, could he make the roster, how would he make the roster, what would be his role, and just talk about Isaiah Wright as far as the Washington Redskins. So without further ado, let's get straight into today's video. But before we do, make sure you guys go down below, leave a like on this video, subscribe if you're new, and turn on post notifications so you get notified when I upload a video about the NFL, or in this case, our Washington Redskins. And let's get straight into today's video. So wide receiver Isaiah Wright is a 6'2" wide receiver, 222 pounds or 220 pounds out of Temple. I finally got around to watching his highlight tape last night around, I want to say, at least 12 or 1 in the morning, and I was blown away. I was blown away within the first minute of that video. I was like, wow. And even like, it feels as though our whole draft was a steal. Because, I mean, I was watching his highlight tape, and I was just like, how did this guy go undrafted? Now, the team comparison that I can make so far is one Antonio Gibson. He's a comparison to Antonio Gibson because, I mean, when I was watching his highlight tapes, man, he was all over the field. He was especially phenomenal in the kick return game. He had, at least in that highlight package, he had at least 3 to 4 kick returns for a touchdown. And they had him in some formations in the backfield, taking snaps as from a halfback position, handing the ball off, and he took it to the house too. And of course they had him playing wide receiver on the outside. That is his position, and he dominated there in all 3 phases of the game. He's 6'2", 220, and I really think that he can make this roster. And before Isaiah Wright, I didn't think he was gonna make the roster, because that's why I was really prolonging the video of not making it, because I was just like, I don't want to, or something like that. I was just like, I feel as though he's not gonna make the roster. But then I was like, let me check him out, and boy was I wrong. This dude is nasty, man. I was watching his highlights tape yesterday, and I was really just blown away. And I was just like, man, we have so many versatile players on this team now. It's crazy. Antonio Gibson, Steven Sims, Isaiah Wright, you can throw him in there too. It's just crazy how we have so many versatile playmakers, and it's just great to see the trend of direction that this team is going in. We want a lot of players that are versatile, not even just the offense. We have a lot of defensive players that's versatile too. But it's just crazy to see that this team is treading in the right direction as far as getting versatile players that can play or can affect all 3 phases of the game. So I have pulled up right here to my right. It is an article on Redskins.com about one Isaiah Wright, and I'll be reading it off to you here right now. So wide receiver Isaiah Wright, standing at 6'2" and weighing in at 220 pounds, Wright has the size to be an NFL wide receiver and the ability to back it up. He had 2,104 yards from scrimmage, including 134 receptions and 1,552 yards, and accounted for 15 total touchdowns in his 4 years at Temple. But perhaps the area where Wright excels in the most was in the return game. He was an all-conference return specialist in 2017, and he was the AAC Special Teams Player of the Year in 2018. As a punt and kick returner, he accumulated for 2,473 yards and 5 touchdowns while averaging 24.2 yards on the kick return and 10.3 yards on punts. So, as you can see, I'm not even halfway done reading it, but as you can see, this guy is filling up the stat sheet. And they said where he excels the most in is the kick return game. Like he said, he had 2,473 yards and 5 touchdowns while averaging 24.2 yards on kick returns and 10.3 yards on punts. This is way better than one Steven Sims and also Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson, man. I really think that this is where he's gonna find his way onto this team. If we can have a guy like this that's that effective in the kick return and punt return game, that's just gonna make us even more better, even more dangerous. We seen what Steven Sims was able to do last year in the kick return and punt return game, and that's not even his natural position. So with Isaiah Wright coming in, I feel as though it's going to take more slack off of Steven Sims and allow him to focus mainly being on the best slot receiver that he can possibly be, than having to worry about doing kick returns, punt returns, slot. That's just probably going to be overwhelming for one Steven Sims. Although I think he can do it because he did it last year. We want him to focus mainly on slot because we don't want to risk injury. And I feel as though Isaiah Wright could find his way onto this roster by being a kick return, punt returner. We haven't had a dangerous kick return, punt returner since, I want to say, you could throw Crowder in there. You could probably throw D-Jax in there sometime. We haven't had one dangerous kick returner since, I want to say, Brandon Banks. I really compare Isaiah Wright to one Brandon Banks. They look familiar and they play familiar, although Isaiah Wright has the height advantage on him being 6'2", 220. They both play similar and they have similar, attributes. And as far as the kick return, pass return game, or kick return, punt return game, I feel as though Isaiah Wright is a better pass catcher than one Brandon Banks was when he was for the Washington Redskins. So the last paragraph that we have here, it says, big slot receiver with the desired size and athletic ability but lacking speed and consistency of play, Zerline said in his draft profile. So Zerline did a draft profile on one Isaiah Wright. He says there are times where Wright feels more like a running back than a wide out with his eye-catching open field vision and elusiveness. So that's where it comes in to say that he's like one Antonio Gibson. If he feels as though that he's more of a running back than receiver, that's just going to make us have even more competition than it was going to be in Ashburn come training camp than we already expected. Then we already expected Gibson and Wright are going to be fighting for that Christian McCaffrey role that I like to call it come July, and it should be something fun to watch here. That's another way, since he already says that he's more of a halfback than he is a receiver in his opinion. That was obviously the draft profile's opinion. It wasn't, though. It didn't come from the horse's mouth in Isaiah Wright. But if he feels as though Wright can be more of a halfback than receiver, that's just going to add more talent to the halfback room. We already have, I want to say 6 to 7 halfbacks, 5, 6, 7 halfbacks. To add one more, that's just going to be crazy. So the halfback competition is going to be crazy this summer here in Ashburn when training camp once get kicked off. Now, one thing that I did take away from Isaiah Wright's highlights is just I like how he's able to avoid tackles, and he has very strong hands, and even when he does make contact, he doesn't go down on the first tackle. You know what I mean? Just like one Kelvin Harmon, even though Kelvin Harmon is a bigger frame than one Isaiah Wright, he doesn't go down on first contact or first impact. You know what I mean? It takes 2 people at least to take him down. Well, from at least in that highlight package that I watched, that's what it did. And I'm glad that the Washington Redskins got one Isaiah Wright, because it shows how versatile this team is going to be in the future. You know what I mean? And with Cody Latimer situation going on, this just boosted his chances of making the roster come 2020. In fact, I didn't even think Cody Latimer was going to make the roster in 2020 because I just feel as though he's not talented enough. Yes, he's a veteran that Ron Rivera wants, but he's just not as talented as all the young guys that we have here today. And on the Washington Redskins website, it says the title, the best playmaker you should be talking about, Temple wide receiver Isaiah Wright. And this is a video by JBL Productions, or Just Bombs Productions. So he's very underrated. And I really just love this pickup. You know what I mean? And I'm glad I finally got around to his highlights, because it was just, I was just envisioning how he could fit on this offense. He can fit so many ways on this offense. And it's just crazy to think. Say Gibson, Antonio Gibson, and one Isaiah Wright make the team. And you know what I mean? How we already said that we were going to use Antonio Gibson, we can use Isaiah Wright too. So a defense isn't going to be able to get a break. You know what I mean? So say if we line up Darius Geis or Adrian Peterson in the backfield alongside with Gibson. Pass goes to Gibson or whatever. And then he's tired. You know, insert Isaiah Wright. It's just like both of them are the same players. You know what I mean? I wouldn't call him a poor man's Antonio Gibson because Antonio Gibson hasn't proven himself either yet. But he's a backup to Antonio Gibson. They're both the same. You know what I mean? They both are wide receivers, but like to play everywhere. They can be dangerous in the kick return and punt return game, and they could be dangerous in the backfield and also in their natural position as wide receiver. You know what I mean? So it's just like a defense isn't going to be able to get a break if he is to make the roster, because if they both make the rosters, that's just going to make defense even more. It's going to give defenses even more of a headache than they already were dealing with just Antonio Gibson himself. You know what I mean? So it's just, I really hope this guy makes the roster, because if I was the offensive coordinator, I would be getting so creative with one Antonio Gibson and Isaiah Wright. But we don't know how creative Scott Turner can be at times. I don't really know how creative he is going to be. But I just feel as though if I was the offensive coordinator, I would be, giving defenses headaches, man. Because if you gave me Isaiah Wright and Antonio Gibson, man, oh my lord, with Steven Sims in the slot, Terry McLaurin on the outside, Kelvin Harmon / AGG, I would do numbers. I would do numbers with this squad. You know what I mean? And the biggest way I see Isaiah Wright making this team is obviously the kick return, punt return duty. But now with him saying that he can be more of a halfback, that just opened up more doors. I know we have a lot of halfbacks, but I mean, the competition is going to be great. The competition is going to be great. Ron Rivera, just because your name is, I'm not using Darius, I'm going to use Darius Geis, but I know Darius Geis is going to make the roster for sure. But just because your name is Darius Geis doesn't mean you're going to make the roster. Although he is, I was just using it as an example. You know, I have to explain myself for the people out there that's going to be like, you don't know what you're talking about. But you know, I have to explain myself. So say if your name was a big name on the Washington Redskins, and one Isaiah Wright comes in to outperform you. You know what I mean? So my point is, although it's a lot of running backs on this roster, you always have a shot. You have a shot with one Ron Rivera, because he wants to have someone that's gonna compete, that's gonna show competitiveness. You know what I mean? So my biggest way to see him making a roster is the kick return, punt return duty. But he might come in and surprise us. He might make the practice squad. Who knows? As always, it's me, your boy Juan Gotti. Like, comment, subscribe. Head to the Redskins. Turn on post notifications so you get notified when I upload a video about the NFL, or in this case, I'll watch the Redskins. Once again, this is my film breakdown, or my overview of one Isaiah Wright. How do you feel about Isaiah Wright? Do you think he can make the roster? How do you feel? What would his role be as the Washington Redskins, or on the Washington Redskins, if he was to make the roster? Will he make the roster? Let me know what you guys think down below. As always, I gave you my opinion. Now the floor is yours. Hail to the Redskins. Turn on post notifications and subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Like this video and turn on post notifications. Subscribe. Do all that cool stuff. It's me, boy Juan Gotti. Like, comment, subscribe. Hail to the Redskins. I'm out.